Hey everyone, Leticia here, coming to you this Tuesday afternoon, early evening from Playa del Carmen, Mexico. I hope you're all doing well. As promised a couple of days ago, I said I was going to do a brief broadcast about obtaining your Mexican residency. With all the things going on in the world right now, I know there are many Canadians, people from other countries who are looking at options and wondering, if they can have a plan B. And one of the things you may be wondering about is how easy is it to obtain your Mexican residency? Mexico, throughout this entire situation, has been one of the bastions of freedom, especially certain parts of Mexico, such as where I am in Playa del Carmen. We have people coming here from all over the world who are wanting to live freer lives. And I'm blessed to live here. I've been here now for over a year. And again, very much blessed to live in Mexico. So I actually put together outlining the different ways somebody can apply for Mexican residency. I'm going to share those with you. And as a disclaimer, I'm going to say I'm not an immigration consultant, obviously. This is just based on my own research and my being here. At the same time, I will refer to a website of some immigration consultants. I'm not sure if they're based out of Playa del Carmen, but at the very least, they will give you more accurate numbers in terms of what you'd be looking at, okay? So let's get to it, guys. Thanks for joining me. So we're gonna talk about obtaining your Mexican residency. So when you first come to Mexico, you will be granted an automatic 6-month visitor visa upon entry. Now, a lot of people wonder ahead of time, do I need a visa to come to Mexico? No, you don't. With your Canadian or a US passport, you will be granted an automatic 6-month visitor visa. Now, you have the option, and then there's something called temporary residency. If you just come here as a visitor and you don't do anything, that visitor visa will expire after 6 months, and then you'll have to wonder about perhaps remaining in the country illegally. So you hear of people doing visa runs to maybe places like Costa Rica or the United States to maintain an active visitor visa. As an alternative to that, you can apply for what's known as a temporary residency. This will grant you legal stay in Mexico for up to 4 years, no questions asked. And then after that, you have the option of converting that temporary residency to a permanent residency, which would go up to a year. And then after that, you can actually apply for your Mexican citizenship, okay? So let's first of all talk about the temporary residency. There are 2 ways of applying for this. You can do it from outside Mexico, which is the most common way. And more recently, the Mexican government has introduced an option that would allow you to apply for your temporary residency from inside Mexico. So for the most part, people will apply for temporary residency at a Mexican consulate outside of Mexico. Now, a lot of my Canadian friends will ask, well, I tried applying in Toronto and they're telling me I have to wait for 2 months to get an appointment, or certain consulates are not even offering appointments. So if you're wondering about, oh my gosh, I can't even get an appointment at the consulate, suffice it to say that it does not need to be a consulate in your own country. There are certain Mexican consulates that will process applications from people literally all over the world. So I wouldn't, if you're concerned about not being able to get an appointment at a Canadian consulate, and we all know there are certain upcoming travel restrictions, I would say get out while you can, and then you'll figure it out later, okay? But essentially, when it comes to your own resources, it's either a function of your net worth or your monthly income, and depending on the consulate, they'll ask you for 6 months or 12 months worth of bank statements. Some consulates will ask you to get those notarized, or at least they'll ask you to get a stamp from your bank. So of course, that may be a little more difficult if you've already left the country, although there are notarial services that may be able to help you with that even once you've left Canada. And once again, some consulates are easier to deal with than others. I'll mention a couple that I've heard good things about, okay? So in terms of your net worth or monthly income, I'm gonna share with you, let me just lower the screen, give me a sec. I'm gonna share with you the website of a Mexican immigration firm that, I'm gonna stop share, okay, that goes over some of these options, okay? So I'm gonna just share the screen, Mexperience.com, they they come up with the search. So once again, it depends, and it's very confusing. Every consulate will have its own criteria. So I can't promise you that one consulate will give you a certain number. And then what I can say, one of my friends who did manage to apply from Toronto while they were accepting applications, she was asked to show a monthly income of about 1,600 Canadian per month over a 12-month period. At some US-based consulates, we heard of numbers as low as 1,200 USD per month as proof of income. Okay, there you go. I hope you're able to see that. So as you can see, they're saying that depending on how that particular Mexican consulate estimates your income, it will be either, it's somewhere between 1,400 USD per month to 2,200 USD per month as monthly income. Now, if you're coming with a spouse, as you can see, there's a different amount that you have to show for a dependent spouse or children, and it's a lesser amount, somewhere between 472 USD to 746 USD per month, depending on which consulate you go to. So ideally, unless you're swimming in cash, you want to go to one of the consulates that has lesser requirements. And the consulates that I've heard about that they're easiest to deal with are the Vegas Mexican consulate, the Orlando Mexican consulate. I know some of you have concerns about traveling to the US. Costa Rica is another country that has had some of the most lenient measures during this time. And you can also check with that consulate. And when you're applying, this is something you can do on your own. You can just reach out to the consulate, say, listen, I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm wanting to apply for temporary residency in Mexico based on my own resources. Can you please let me know what documents you need from me? Okay. And they will do so. What information do you need from me? And oftentimes they will ask you to submit that information ahead of time. They likely will not call you for an appointment if they don't think you'd qualify, okay? Let me go back to my slides, 1 second, you guys. So once again, when it comes to qualifying based on your own resources, it's either a function of your monthly income or your net worth. The last time I checked in terms of net worth for Canadians, they were looking at about something like 44,000 USD per person. And again, that's for the main applicant. And the only caveat with that is that the money has to be in your account for at least 12 months. You cannot just have sold your home, deposited the money. If you've sold your home and you have the required amount of net worth, you'd have to wait 12 months for the funds to season there, okay? The other way, let's say somebody doesn't qualify based on their own resources. And by the way, I'm gonna post a link in the description of this video. I will post a link to that website of the immigration consultants, okay? If you have a job offer from a Mexican company, so this could be, if you're fortunate and if this is what you're looking for, this could be a legitimate job offer. Alternatively, we are in Mexico. There are all kinds of immigration consultants that will be glad to set you up with a company that will hire you for immigration purposes. Okay, usually the cost of this service, I've been quoted around 30,000 Mexican pesos. Okay, which comes to about, divide that by, it's about 1,500 US dollars roughly. Okay. The other option you have to apply for temporary residency is you can purchase property in Mexico. And again, depending on how the consulate looks at it, the minimum value may be between 188,000 to 298,000 approximately USD. Okay. And finally, you can also choose to open up your own Mexican corporation with an investment capital of about 100 to 150K USD, or you can invest in shares of publicly traded Mexican corporations in that amount, and that would be another way you could apply for your residency. By and large, most people qualify based on their own resources, and or perhaps, in the past, these were really the only ways. Now, since last year, so if you apply for your residency in either one of these ways, you have up to 180 days since your consular appointment to arrive in Mexico. And once you're in Mexico, you have 30 days to continue the process at the local immigration office. And that will be depending on which city you arrive in. If you happen to be coming here in Playa del Carmen, I don't recommend you go to the office by yourself. You're gonna wanna hire an immigration consultant. And I've heard it from other people who have gotten their residency this way. They usually charge a very reasonable amount, something like $200. I should mention, by the way, that if you're applying for your Mexican residency in any one of these ways, there are only some nominal fees that apply, charged in pesos, really very reasonable fees. It's not going to be any more than $1,000 Canadian maximum for the application fees, okay? Now, again, as of sometime last year, the Mexican government has introduced this other program called Regularization of Status Program. In the past, if you were a foreigner who had found yourself in Mexico and you're thinking, oh, I want to get my residency, we had very few options. You pretty much had to travel to a residency, to a Mexican consulate outside of Mexico and start the application process there. And of course, during these uncertain times, many people were very reticent to travel. They didn't even want to leave Mexico. They didn't want to be stuck somewhere else. So what the Mexican government realized was that a lot of foreigners were coming here on visitor visas, and then they were overstaying those visas. And they said, well, we can help all these people. Let's introduce this regularization of status program. And the nice thing about it is there's no proof of income required. It's really just a one-pager you sign declaring why you've overstayed your residency. Oh, I've overstayed because of COVID restrictions and I can't go back to my country. No problem. We'll take your money. 13,000 pesos later, you qualify for a temporary residency of up to 4 years. After 4 years of being a temporary resident, you can then pay a little extra, you become a permanent resident, and after a year of being a permanent resident, you can then get your Mexican citizenship. This is actually the way I ended up getting my residency. I was looking at my other options, but by the time I got out of Canada, by the time I found myself in Mexico, I was like, okay, this became really the easiest option. I didn't have to leave Mexico, okay? The only caveat with this program is that the foreigner has to have been to Mexico before. You cannot be a Mexico virgin. In other words, this cannot have been your only arrival in Mexico. So in my case, I was fortunate enough, I did have a previous passport stamp from 2019. So if any of you have been to Mexico before, even if it was just for a week as a visitor, you would qualify for this program. Pretty much no questions asked. Again, I don't recommend, even though the paperwork is very basic, I wouldn't recommend that you attempt to do this on your own. Definitely work with an immigration consultant because they have the relationships at the immigration office. And if you go on your own, trust me, because I've tried going on my own, and even though I speak Spanish fluently, they don't treat you very well if you go on your own. You're better off going with an immigration consultant. They're going to charge you between 5,000 and 10,000 pesos to process the paperwork for you, and you're going to be given an appointment, and you don't have to waste your time waiting in line hours and hours and days. Okay, quite simple. And now, of course, ideally, if you can apply for permanent residency right away, that's a lot better than having to go the extra step of applying for temporary residency. For permanent residency, higher financial requirements apply. So, but although they're not excessive, again, I remember looking for Canadians, they were looking for about 55,000 worth of funds if you're applying based on net worth. In terms of the monthly income, again, don't quote me. What I'm going to do is I will link to the Mexican immigration consultant's website where you can have an idea of the numbers. And again, usually they only grant permanent residency to people 45 plus. I guess they don't want the broke young people. joking. Anyway, but I have heard of exceptions, especially for people who have really strong financials. No questions asked, they were granted permanent residency, though they were, quite a few years below 45, under 45. Okay. Again, there are other ways of applying for your permanent residency. And this could be some of the fastest ways if you are fortunate enough to fall into one of these categories. So one would be by marrying a Mexican, you fell in love, or you simply met a Mexican that's willing to help. There are immigration consultants that will gladly facilitate that for you as well. Don't quote me on it, but wink, wink. The other option is by having a baby in Mexico or adopting a Mexican child. And again, the nice thing about this is that you go straight to permanent residency. So for example, within 2 years of being married to a Mexican, you'd be able to now apply for your citizenship. So you get, pardon me, you would get actually, you'd get temporary residency for 2 years. And then after that, you apply for your permanent, and then you get your citizenship. In the case of having a baby in Mexico or being related to someone by family links, such as somebody declaring that they're your mother or father, or you know, somebody, it has to be a very immediate relationship. It has to be mother, son, that sort of relationship. It cannot be a brother or sister. It cannot go sideways. It has to be a parental relationship. Then you could actually, again, go straight to the permanent residency. Okay. I realize, and that's an interesting consideration, by the way, because I happen to know quite a few couples who came here with the woman highly pregnant, and they strategically did so because even two foreigners who end up having a baby born in Mexico, they immediately qualify for permanent, they can apply now for permanent residency. So it is one of the fastest ways to get your permanent residency, and I realize that may well apply to some of you. So I do have to mention it. So that's pretty much all I prepared for you. Once again, you guys, I am not an immigration consultant myself. What I'll do is I will post the website of these guys. They look legitimate. They look like a professional firm. I had looked into them even before I left Canada. But if you're specifically looking for consultants here in Playa del Carmen, I also am aware of some really good ones, including somebody who ended up getting me the final immigration office appointment so that I could get my residency here. There's one additional consideration that I should warn you about. If you are a parent to a Canadian-born child or your child was born elsewhere, not in Mexico, there is one extra step you need to take. You need to have their birth certificate. You need to take their birth certificate to the Canadian State Department or US State Department, okay? And then after you get a seal on the birth certificate from the State Department, you need to then take that birth certificate to the Mexican consulate in your country. If you've already left Canada and you're not in a position to do so anymore, there are services that will do this for you, okay? I believe the process is called apostille. That's something I'm currently dealing with for my own child because, you know, he was born in Canada and I didn't know about this when he came here. So that being said, if you're in a position to do this process before you, fantastic, you'll save yourself some hassles, okay? That's all I have to say, you guys. Feel free to reach out to me. If you need a recommendation for an immigration consultant, I'm happy to put you in touch with some reliable consultants here in Playa. And other than that, you already know where to find me for anything Playa del Carmen related, including support with finding a rental or a property here in Playa, okay? Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the week. I will talk to you soon. I will see you soon. Blessings.